Bobby,
Yo.
Miss 90s toy known as Bop It, I've got a meme for you to look at.
All right.
I want you to explain what it says.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may not know what it means.
No.
That's fine.
Probably not.
But explain what it says and what the image looks like.
I don't understand a lot of your crazy kid memes.
Yeah, but this one's in a foreign language.
Oh, okay. Well, cool.
Yeah, we're going international.
Okay, so it says La Mancha Negra. I hope I pronounced that.
Yeah, that was actually really good.
Okay. And then it's got like it's kind of a sepia tone looking picture, and it's got like a black puddle in the middle, like an oil spill kind of. And the puddle's got a face on it, and its eyes are going different directions, and it's got kind of a weird little smirky look on its face.
Yeah.
This is an odd little picture. All right.
Yeah,
So what is that?
yeah.
What does that mean?
So you've got a weird, maybe cranky, because he's got his like
he
eyes
doesn't-
are kind of
Yeah,
scowling
he
a bit.
doesn't look happy. Yeah.
He's kind of a cranky looking black puddle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's figure out what this meme means.
All right.
Usually we do this show based on memes that I stumble across that are trending.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're just ones that they're not really trending right now, but I just heard of them. Sometimes they're ones I remember. I'm like, oh, what was that about? And then I look into them.
Okay.
This one was a little different how I came across this meme. I discovered something online from a post that I had never heard of before. And while looking into it, one of the sources used this meme. And I was like, I do want to do an episode on this. Like, it's not that I found a meme and, you know, and the meme itself isn't spreading anything, no misinformation being spread or anything like that. In fact, looking at it, if you didn't know what it was about, you're not going to know what it's about.
Right.
It doesn't explain a thing. It just has a mad looking little puddle and it says La Mancha Negra in it. So we're going to begin our story. And Bobby, this time the tone's going to be a little different than our normal episodes.
Okay.
This time it's going to be dark.
Oh, yeah, that's totally different.
In 1986, road workers in Venezuela were servicing a major road to a Caracas airport when they noticed something strange. Along the road, there was a huge swath of a black substance. It was reported to be about 46 meters long. So, a span of black mystery goo, about half the field of play in American football. This became known as La Mancha Negra, or in English, the black stain.
Whoa.
Yeah, spooky. So, you might be thinking, they cleaned up the 50 yards of goo and all is well now. But this goo, it didn't stay put.
Oh, did it come back?
It
Or
started...
it escaped?
Oh, even worse.
Worse than escaping? Okay.
It started growing.
Oh, God. It's the blob.
Soon, La Mancha Negra was 8 miles long.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy.
That's a lot of goo.
Yeah, that's a lot of goo. That's a boatload of goo.
How wide is it? It's 8 miles, but is it like a foot wide?
So it was confined to the width of the highway.
Okay.
So I don't know if it spanned the entire width of the highway, and I don't know how its width fluctuated along the 8 miles.
Okay.
But it remained just on the highway.
Just on the road. Okay.
Yeah, it just grew along
That's
on top of
interesting.
the asphalt.
Okay.
And later, we will get to a report that the chud had taken over nearly every street in Venezuela. This bizarre substance was described as both slippery, yet having a consistency like chewing gum.
Well, that's interesting.
Its notorious mystery and imposing nature earned it the name Ayaculada de Diabla,
Oh.
which is a name I made up. It means Satan's come.
Oh, okay.
And it has been reported that the devil splooge didn't just remain in that single stretch of highway. In fact, some have said it tended to grow on roads going uphill and in tunnels, as if it preferred those areas.
That's weird.
Yeah. People in this way often referred to the Beelzespunk like it was sentient somehow. The citizens of Caracas felt terrorized by its ooey, gooey, diablooey presence.
Oh, you had a lot of fun writing this one, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I had a fucking blast. That major road that leads out of Caracas is known today as Autopista Caracas La Guaira, which means the road to Oh, wait. It actually is just named that because the road leads to the city of La Guaira. Okay. All right. That just means highway to La Guaira. Okay. I get that's okay.
Yeah.
And its name most likely comes from the name for a native South American flute type instrument rather than anything devilish. But it's still pretty hot there. Okay. Still pretty hot.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's not good news regarding La Mancha Negra. Because much like a mushroom or an armpit stain, it is said to become more present in hot and wet conditions. Concerns grew about the substance, and not just because it looks weirder than what I would imagine Gary Busey's foot would look like, but because La Mancha Negra was reported to be responsible for taking human life.
Interesting.
It was said that millions of dollars were spent by the Venezuelan government to identify and eradicate this substance. The government hired private companies to try scraping the substance off the road. They tried power washing it away, but the Skid Row Symbiote kept returning. And Bobby, we'll go over the results of their studies. But first, let's focus on the human toll this substance had.
Yeah, what happened? I'm curious.
I want you to guess how many deaths were attributed to the black stain.
How many? Was it double digits?
I'm not giving you clues.
25.
1,800.
Oh.
And no, that isn't just the first 4 digits you dial when you want to buy a as seen on TV garbage crap. That's how many deaths were caused by the black stain. 1,800. That's a pretty round number for human fatalities,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty exact, yeah. I mean, they must have fudged it a little bit.
I don't know. You'd think that I could narrow down somewhere a more precise number. But wait. Maybe the toll is actually 1,800. You know, maybe it
possible.
is exactly 1,800. If you're already in the 1,700 to 1,800 range, that's only a 1 in 200 chance that you would land on that number.
Right.
And in fact, this may not be the first time a measurement turned out to be this round. In 1856, the Survey of India measured Mount Everest peak to be at 29,002 feet above sea level.
Cool.
And it has been said that the surveyors actually discovered the average measurements to peak to be a nice round 29,000 feet, but added the 2 to the end to make it look less like an estimate and also to assuade skeptics of their measurements.
Yeah, I could see that because nobody's going to believe it was exactly 29,000. No.
Yeah. Which, like, reading into that, I can't tell for certain what is accurate about that, because a lot of times when people reference the story behind that, some of the parts that they reference are letters to the editor, which could just be people telling stories they heard, you know, because like you don't almost anything, almost any letter to the editor gets published, so it doesn't get vetted real well. But so I don't know for certain, and I didn't look into that because this isn't about Mount Everest, this is about La Mancha Negra.
Yeah.
So maybe 1,800 deaths shouldn't pique my skeptic ears as much as it does. Wait, why don't I see this reported anywhere? Except for really hard to trust websites. That's weird. And every site that reports this number uses the exact same source. So it's almost like only one place is saying this. Anyway, the high death toll, of course, became a huge political motivator. Why else would they spend millions of dollars researching and trying to eradicate the substance?
Well, I don't know. It's like an 8-mile stretch. I want to know what the hell's going on, too.
And we'll get to the research results in a moment.
Oh, good. I want to know what this is.
Yeah. But what worked in terms of getting rid of the stuff? Eventually, the government decided to dry it out with pulverized limestone, which worked.
Cool.
But the limestone dust supposedly caused air quality issues for the residents near the road where it was applied.
Yeah.
And it did work, but only temporarily. La Mancha returned.
Oh, dear.
Politically, the substance was a hot-button issue,
Yeah.
with Fernando Martinez Motala, Minister of Transport and Communications, claiming that he would eradicate not just the substance, but also the people living nearby. The neighborhoods on that highway were populated with poor people and therefore were an easy target to blame for whatever was coming up through the roadway.
Sure.
Just like in the U.S., the poor are a political punching bag for some Venezuelan politicians.
Yeah.
Shocking, I know. But according to Ciro Za Alvarez, who became the new Minister of Transport and Communications, the mysterious black goo had taken over all the roads in Caracas. That's some growth.
Right? All the roads in a town. That's...
In a city. That's one of the...
Yeah, city.
It's one of the biggest cities in South America. It's the biggest city in Venezuela.
Wow, and all the roads are covered in this weird mystery goo.
Yeah.
They can't get rid of, and nobody's identified yet.
To break this darkness down, the government heroically stepped up their game, and they ordered German machinery, and lo and behold, the streets of Venezuela were no longer covered in black monster goo, with Rafael Caldera returning as president. Only he was able to stop the ghost gunk then and there, even though it had nearly taken over all of Caracas.
And it was just on the roads. There wasn't anywhere else? Just the roads?
Yes.
Huh.
Wait, I can't find any information that what Alvarez said was true. And I did come across a source that suggested that their administration made up the idea that the Satan sludge spread everywhere so that their efforts to clean it up would look more effective afterward. Now, when you drive your car through Caracas, my goodness, the streets are clean. Nobody but the Caldera administration could have pulled it off. But what is true is that the substance did lead to some deaths.
Yeah.
And 1,800, that's not a small Wait. Yeah, every single source that uses that number uses the same news page, and I couldn't find any other source anywhere near the time of the event that claimed 1,800 people died. Like I said, though, some people did die from La Mancha Negra. But it's not because of it sending out like deadly spores or poisonous gas like you might expect. Some drivers on that highway reported that the road was as slippery as ice when La Mancha Negra was present.
Okay.
And it is almost always hot in Caracas. So you're not going to be expecting something as slippery as ice when you're driving on the road.
No.
Yeah. And in fact, people who've lived there their whole lives are probably not real familiar with driving on slippery substances anyway.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the cars that are marketed there or get sold there don't have like an anti-lock braking system or something like that that's necessary for when you hit something slippery.
Yeah, you wouldn't need it.
You know, especially back then in the 80s, you know, before safety features went above and beyond. So I'm not shocked that people slid off the road and died by hitting this substance that is being described as slippery as ice.
Right.
Citizens dying is a real issue. And of course, some politicians latched onto the urban legends surrounding La Mancha Negra, so there was some incentive for politicians to do something about it and figure out what the substance is. Many of the sources that I used to research this, they like to cite this particular news source. And let me quote from them. But what is La Mancha Negra? And where does it come from? Despite years of investigation and millions of dollars spent, there's still no definitive answer to these questions. Several theories have been proposed, but none of them have been proven conclusively. That must have been a typo in my script, because I typed that entire sentence twice. Oh wait, that's a screenshot directly from their fucking website. It actually reads that way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I guess we're back to square one in terms of fucking sources.
Yeah.
But it's not that typos completely disqualify a source from being accurate, but with as much misinformation that is being spread about this subject, it is worth noting that we need to be careful about what sources we're using.
Yeah.
But Bobby, millions of dollars were being spent not only trying to clean up, but study the substance. And in fact, when I was reading the studies, I didn't find any goddamn studies. In the 80s and the 90s, the Venezuelan government was famously corrupt. And while I couldn't find proof of a conspiracy to steal money, you can imagine how easy it would be to have the public already believe that there's a substance that nobody knows about and that the gunk is a mystery, and then ask for millions to, quote, study it without ever doing dick about it. And just saying, oh, we still don't know, and feeding into the narrative that the people already want to believe in the first place. Because it's fun to believe in conspiracies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be a conspiracy. That, depending on which theory you follow. But we're going to go over the theories here in a minute. Now, I could not find in English or Spanish any actual studies cited. No lab or university ever reported even looking at the stuff. So
It was just some guy out there with a stick. He's poking at it. He's like, "Give me $1 million. I'll tell you what it is."
well, okay, later on we're going
to holds a stick up in his friend's face. I'm going to touch you with it.
Look how gross it is.
Give me
I'm
$20
gonna touch
or
you.
I'm
He's
going
like
to touch you.
He's chasing his friend. His friend's like, stop. He's like, ew. All right, well, $1 million, thanks. But no, it's funny because later on we're going to get to what is almost that.
Okay.
But not in terms of the studies, in terms of something else.
Right.
So we're going to get to something that is you're not far off from. So the fact that I couldn't find any studies on this might be the reason why we could never figure out what it is. And that's because no one likely ever tried.
Oh.
But it's a lot cooler for the news to read, no one knows what it is.
Yeah, it got my attention. I want
Rather
to know
than-
what it is.
Yeah, rather than, we never bothered. Of course, some say it's an alien species.
Oh, that was my first thought.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
blob.
Yeah, it's the blob.
Yeah.
Or even a warning from aliens to take better care of our planet. Like they
We're going to mess up your roads.
yeah, well, see, like the idea behind this conspiracy theory is that aliens had come and planted something in our planet that if we weren't taking care of the planet correctly, it would activate and it would become a problem for us.
Okay.
So that's one theory.
Sure.
Some say it's a living organism that seeped up from underground.
Mm-hmm.
Some say it's from sewage waste. And of course, that's a good route for the government to blame poor people.
Yeah.
It was also claimed that old cars were leaking onto the highway and mixing with dust to create the sludge. And at the time, there were actually a lot of Venezuelans on the road because of incredibly low gas prices. But we may not have to go just based on theories. Now, there are rumors that La Mancha Negra has recently returned. And so we could study it now if we wanted to. But let me read from somebody who is familiar with that road. I drive on that road almost every day, and no, La Mancha Negra doesn't exist anymore, but it was a reality in the 90s. When I was a kid, I almost had an accident with my parents and brother while driving there when the car started to tailspin out of control and barely hit the central defense. They fixed it in the late 90s by removing all the asphalt and doing the job over again. Which brings me to the final and what I consider to be most likely theory. Shifty work by shifty companies not mixing their cheap ingredients properly.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is what a lot of Venezuelans seem to believe as well. Some have noticed what they call fenomeno de las bolsas negras, which means the black bag phenomenon. These are bits of black plastic bags stuck all throughout the newly resurfaced road, which appears to be careless work being done. And some have said it doesn't seem like a coincidence that the black stain returns right after this shoddy looking work is done. So, Bobby, what do you think about La Mancha Negra?
Well, I'm disappointed, man. I was hoping it was aliens.
Yeah, it is almost certainly just shitty highway work.
We got enough of that anyway. I mean, drive through Illinois sometime. You want to see some shitty highway work.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Like
At least we don't have the black stain.
there's an old meme even where it shows drunk driver with the the swerving and everything.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
sober driver where it's straight, and then it shows in Illinois drunk driver and they're driving straight
Through all
and
the
then
potholes.
and sober driver and they're avoiding all the potholes.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. It's bad.
Yeah.
Like, I'll avoid the potholes because you don't want to shred your tires, but every once in a while you're out there driving and there's, you worry, is a cop going to see me?
Yeah,
Is he going to believe that there was a pothole back there? I mean, hopefully he knows the area and he knows, there was a shitty pothole back there. But yeah, it makes you nervous because you drive so badly. You got to worry about other traffic.
You have to it's basically like doing highway slalom.
Yeah. Yeah, some parts it's ridiculous. I mean, you cannot
insane.
drive in a straight line.
Yeah. Which like I'm not getting into it anyway. They insist that you report the potholes and all that stuff, but I'm not.
Good luck.
I wasn't. That's the part I wasn't getting into. But when they were cleaning these highways, right? They're trying to clean off this gunk. They would try the same stupid thing over and over again, but almost likely were not putting much effort into doing it because every time they were hired to redo it, they got more money.
Oh yeah,
and they were getting paid a lot because the government was paying them a lot, but they were still cheaper than who would do a competent job. and so the government, but the government was saying that they were paying, the government. Okay, so I don't want to say that this is what was happening, but some of the theories that Venezuelans came up with was that the government was saying that they were paying them more than they actually were. That way they could skim off the top, which that was not an uncommon behavior for the Venezuelan government. And a lot of corruption that did get uncovered was similar to that type of practice. And so even though in regards to the La Mancha Negra, it was never, I couldn't find any sources that proved or even reported on corruption in that specific event. But the guy who was president when Alvarez was minister of transportation and communication pushed this as a huge political point to say that he had gotten rid of La Mancha Negra. And it was his administration, specifically Alvarez, who said it publicly, that the black goo had spread all across Caracas, which is already not believable.
Yeah.
But then when they, cleaned it all up, they had hired machinery from Germany, because everybody knew Germany as being a great place for engineering. They're like, oh, we really invested. We had all this equipment shipped from Germany and we cleaned up all the streets. And it's I think if you're going to go with the path of least resistance on here, it seems more likely that they exaggerated how bad the problem was so that it looked like they did did better later on.
Right.
Because the thing is, the Minister of Transportation and Communication and the president, they're not just getting elected by Caracas, they're getting elected by all of Venezuela, And even though Alvarez did not keep his job after that, Caldera ended up getting reelected several times. So, and I think he was president for 9 years. And so it's it was a political football of some kind, whether or not, even if corruption was not involved, there was at least some deceit involved, because it seems like every politician ends up feeling like they have to use deceit in order to win. And this seems like a good target because the urban legend was having such a huge impact on people's fears. And, obviously placating to people's fears is a good way to get reelected, especially if you could see that you did something about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how we have politicians in the U.S. who will say, oh, there are millions and millions of immigrants coming in and murdering people. And then, that's, which is completely against what any stats say.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite. And then when their administration is in power, they'll point to the actual stats and say, look at how much of a difference I made. But they won't show you the stats from, 5 years ago.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing, except for with the stupid black goo that came from government incompetence in the first place.
Right.
And so it's just, I don't know, it's insane. The whole thing is, in my opinion, really silly. And it's come up recently only because people are trying to say it still exists. like that it's come back again, and like trying to play on this mystery that a lot of these news agencies tried to over embellish to get better stories. So it's almost certainly nothing.
Yeah.
It's just shoddy road work. And I was so excited when I first started reading about it because I was like, I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah, what is this?
And it went someplace so fucking boring. Like, the more I learned, I'm like, I think I know where this is going. Like, I think I know what this is. Because even reading the sites that were making the extravagant claims, even I was like, okay, this is just going someplace dumb. I already know. But anyway, what do you think?
It's interesting. A little disappointing. I was really hoping for something more entertaining.
It's a cool story, though.
I mean,
in terms of, it's a cool story at first, I should say.
Yeah, it had a good start, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's too bad that so many people got hurt or died because somebody couldn't do the job properly.
And really, what most reports say is that, quote, several people died, and so it's almost certainly much less than 1,800.
Yeah, but still, somebody died.
Yeah, and and I tried to figure out where they got the 1,800 number. And like I went through and I tried to find like car crash fatalities through the different years, and there's not a lot of data back in the 80s and 90s for that. But then I went like I found car crash data and the increasing percentages. I found out what the percentage of the population of Venezuela lived in Caracas and what their population growth trends were, and then I mathematically worked it back to 1986 through 1992, which is when that 1,800 was supposedly had happened. But even doing that, and based on the WHO estimates, based on even the lowest estimates, which would be their government reported data, it still was more than what the 1,800 number was. So I can't figure out. I don't know if they just made it up off the top of their head.
Could be.
Which in that case, you should have done the Mount Everest thing. Like add a 2 to the end of it at least.
Yeah, make it seem like a more legitimate number.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, I thought it at first I thought it was an interesting story, and I'm glad that I was able to get it to a place, not until a complete conclusion, but to a place without too much doubt. Anyway. Thank you all so much for listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
People in this way often referred to the Beelzespunk like it was sentient somehow.
I like that one.
The citizens of Caracas felt terrorized by its ooey, gooey, diablooey presence.
Oh, you had a lot of fun writing this one, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I had a fucking blast.